Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long at Wild Wild West, Tropicana, and Harrah's Resort, Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. I am at the Tropicana, Chickies and Pete's, right across from the Caesars Sportsbook, which is right across from Chickies and Pete's. You can stop on out and see the show live. You can come on out, watch Thursday Night Football tonight. A lot of baseball as the baseball playoffs are underway. NBA getting started very shortly. The Flyers, by the way, they open the season, I think, next Friday night. We'll have more on the Flyers over on our website, 97.3ESPN.com. Andrew DiCecco is here, and we'll get a couple of Eagles notes in and some thoughts from him on the Eagles and the Carolina Panthers as we bring in Andrew DiCecco from InsideTheBirds.com right now on the Sports Bash. Andrew, welcome back, man. How are you?
Mike, doing well, man. How are you?
All is well, and we got a lot going on in Eagle Land, so let's get a couple of thoughts from you. And obviously, the other day, there was a lot that happened in the NFL with some guys released, so I'd like to get your take. You know, Jalen Smith gets released, what was that, Tuesday night? He signed with the Packers today. Stephon Gilmore, it looked like he was released. Then he ends up getting traded for a 6th-round pick. People were tweeting at me yesterday, why didn't Howie Roseman get involved with either of those guys? Let's get your takeaway. Should the Eagles have been interested in either one of those guys, or are they not really at the stage to go get a Gilmore type? The Smith is interesting because I think everybody looks at him as linebacker where the Eagles are really struggling right now. Would he have helped? Let's start with him then. Would he have helped them at linebacker?
Yeah, he would have helped the struggling linebacker core, but you have to wonder at what point, what week will he make an impact, right? You're trying to learn a new scheme, and Jonathan Gannon is trying to implement a new scheme during the season. I don't know how effective he would be or how much of an impact he would make until maybe 3 or 4 weeks down the road. And the linebackers situation needs to be invigorated immediately. And, I mean, in the case of Stephon Gilmore, of course, sure. I mean, every team would love a Stephon Gilmore on their roster, but what's going to entice him to come to Philadelphia, right? I mean, he's going to want to come to a contender. So when you start to narrow down those options, I mean, it really whittles down to, I mean, to me, I looked at 4 different teams, and some of them being the Chiefs and the Buccaneers, who obviously just put Carlton Davis on IR, one of their starting corners. So I mean, those were certain teams that I looked at. Obviously, he's with the Panthers now, but again, that's a contender. Those are the teams that you expect to see a Stephon Gilmore gravitate towards.
Yeah, and I know that he's on the PUP list. He's 31 years old. I mean, it just feels like on Gilmore, the Eagles are just not in a position to have to go down that route to go with him. And as you mentioned with Smith, he's probably better. But it seems that Jonathan Gannon, regardless of who his personnel, Andrew, is, he's going to stick with what he does. So whether you bring in someone new or not, he's going to keep calling his game. So we could see a lot of long outings for the Eagles defense.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to pretty much be the case all season long. I don't foresee any alterations or any vast changes of personnel or different plugging guys in different roles. I mean, I don't know that he's going to do that. He didn't give us any indication that he was going to do that. So I think what you're going to see is a lot more of the same, and they're going to continue to alleviate the big play and prevent that. And, in doing that, you sacrifice the ground game, defending the run, and they're going to continue to get gouged in that regard of the game because they simply don't have the personnel equipped to sort of solidify that area. And that's going to be a problem all season long. I don't know who you're going to find on a practice squad or anywhere around that's going to be able to provide instant relief and impact that unit the way that they need, the way that needs to be retooled. That's going to be an off-season project, and
yes.
It's going to be something that's going to take a while to sort of fix.
Well, it's an all-season project too, Andrew. That's hard to fix if the organization doesn't value that spot, right? I mean, you wonder if they're watching the league. And, in your opinion, is the league is the league kind of going back to valuing linebackers? There was a time where linebackers were not really valued by the entire league, but it seemed like someone got the memo that you're going to start needing these guys, and the Eagles missed that memo.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. When you look at all around the league, to the Buccaneers who are coming up on Thursday night, they have a lot of rangy, fast linebackers. Darius Leonard, who Jonathan Gannon obviously saw up close and personal, the impact that he can have on a game and just defend the run and move laterally and drop into coverage. Shaq Thompson's another player that we're all going to see on Sunday. And you can just sort of see how they sort of transform and give the defensive coordinators so much liberties in which they're able to deploy and align their different guys, and it gives them a lot more flexibility. And right now, Jonathan Gannon's hands are essentially tied, not to excuse him by any stretch, because he does need to find a way to adapt his scheme to that best suits his personnel. Otherwise, you're going to continue to get gouged, and he needs to figure that out, and he's going to have to figure it out in a hurry. But I do think that they're going to have to reevaluate their stance on the linebacker position in the offseason. And if I'm Jonathan Gannon, I'm talking to Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie and say, look, this is what I need in order to effectively run my scheme. And you would hope that they would give him that support and that they can sort of start to add building blocks so that he can implement that. Otherwise, it's going to continuously be a perpetual disaster and musical chairs at that position.
Yeah, how about the this week? When it comes to the linebacking core, what are some of the challenges they will have with this Carolina offense? Because I think when we think of Carolina, Andrew, at least early on, we're thinking about their defense, which has been really good, but they do have some very intriguing weapons offensively. So how can their offense scheme the Eagles' linebackers?
Oh, I mean, they'll be able to get their running backs, whether it's Chuba Hubbard is a good pass-catching running back. He had a decent week last week. They'll be able to get him out there. They'll be able to get their tight ends isolated on these guys. And then in the secondary, you saw what Tyreek Hill did last week. And they have another the Carolina Panthers have a speed guy that can take the top off, and Robbie Anderson, who I think is going to be a big factor in this game. It's a copycat league, right? They're going to go back and see what the Chiefs did that was so successful, and they have movable pieces like a DJ Moore who can, who's exactly what the Eagles probably thought they were getting in Jalen Reagor, and you can use him in a multitude of ways. I think they're going to find a way to get him the ball in space, and they're going to find a way to take the top off of the defense and take advantage of Steven Nelson with Robbie Anderson. They also have the rookie Terrence Marshall, who's an ascending player and has the ability to factor into the red zone situations. They have a lot of weapons here, and I think that the Chiefs laid out the blueprint on how to attack it effectively.
Yeah, and like for the people who think that the Panthers are a defensive team, which they're very good, you just kind of remember they have a lot of offensive weapons, but Sam Darnold, how has he kind of transitioned from the Jets guy who's been a disappointment to the quarterback of this 3-1 Panthers team?
Well, he wasn't really surrounded with a whole lot of talent when he was with the Jets. If you remember, back when I was covering the Jets, they had, they brought Demaryius Thomas in to sort of fulfill a receiver role because they lost Quincy Newell with a neck injury. Demaryius Thomas was well past his prime and on his last leg. Jamison Crowder was his most effective option out of the slot, and he's far from a dynamic player. He was just a reliable slot option, much like Greg Ward is for the Eagles. And, and Robbie Anderson was a very sporadic player, very inconsistent. He was sort of an all-or-nothing type player. If he wasn't beating a team deep, he was really ineffective and didn't really factor into the game plan.
Yeah.
And the running back situation, they never really got what they thought they were getting in Le'Veon Bell. And it was sort of just the offensive line was pretty bad. It was a culmination of things. Obviously, Adam Gase is at the forefront of that, and he, much like many players who seem to leave Adam Gase, they go on and they find a system that works for them. Got to give a lot of credit to Matt Rule for the work that he's done with Sam Darnold, putting him in position to be successful. And Darnold looks like a much more comfortable, accurate passer, and he doesn't have to run for his life like he did with the Jets. He's just, he's just he's great at making his reads, and he's using all his vast array of weapons.
Talking with Andrew DiCecco, football at 4 here on the Sports Bash. It's Eagles and Panthers kind of looking at some of the matchups here and some of the news going on as well. The injury report came out a little earlier today. It's Lane Johnson, personal matter. Looks like he's not going to play. And if that's the case, it looks like Jordan Mailata could be a possibility at right tackle or Jack Driscoll. And obviously that means you would have Dillard playing left tackle again. What have you seen from Dillard in the 2 games that he has played?
Yeah, Dillard looks like a player who's sort of learning from a lot of his mistakes, who seems like someone that's worked with Jeff Stoutland to attack his deficiencies and really hone in on his, on what he needed to do to become a better pro. And the reason why that's so evident is you're seeing a vastly different player than from what we've seen. I mean, starting back to the Jets preseason game where I thought he held his own. And granted, that's the preseason you want, but in the regular season action, for what we've had to go off of, it's been fairly impressive from Andre Dillard, and he seems to be someone that's improving with reps, like you'd like to see with a lot of players, and you're not seeing a lot of those same mistakes sort of plague him. However, we have to see what he can do in the running game because they've dropped back and passed. Jalen Hurts passed the ball 48 times last week. Andre Dillard's much better in pass protection than he is against the run. Obviously, the Eagles have sort of neglected the running game in recent weeks, so we have to see how he's able to hold his own at the point of attack in that phase of the game. But, I mean, as of right now, you have to be encouraged with what you've seen from him.
Yeah, and I know that we've talked about running the ball. They haven't done it a whole heck of a lot this week, and obviously with the offensive line issues that they have had, I want to get your thought, though, on the Eagles' ability to run the ball. Are they not running it because they're not a good running team? Is that one of the reasons why Nick Sirianni doesn't want to run the ball? Does he not think they're a good running the ball football team?
Well, it's kind of hard to say that you're not a good running team when you don't really give it a chance. I think you owe it to your offense, you owe it to your team to really get everyone settled in and run the football and keep the defense honest. It sets up so many different things, and you're able to open up your playbook. I think you need to at least give it a larger sample size before you completely entirely write it off. And Miles Sanders needs to be able to hit the hole with authority and not do a whole lot of dancing around when he does get his opportunities. And obviously they might shy away from that a little bit with a lot of the backup linemen there, but that's no excuse. I mean, you heard what the head coach for the Chargers said, I believe it was yesterday or the day before, about how running the football just inflicts a physical element that defenses have to account for. You have to tackle. You have to, be able to shed blocks, and you have to be able to impose your will and at least attempt it. Otherwise, you really become one-dimensional and very easy to defend.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon Staley became, I think, everybody's favorite coach the other day. He essentially said, look, you have to run the ball. Now, he's a defensive-minded coach, so it's interesting hearing that from him. But his reasoning was really great, and you're seeing, like, offensive linemen, retweeting them and fans all over the place. This is my new favorite coach, and you just wonder how much that would help Jalen Hurts out by just having an added element. That being said, they've been very one-dimensional offensively, but they've scored 30 points or more twice this season already, Andrew. They didn't do that at all last year. Are you seeing positive growth in Nick Sirianni's offense, even without them having a very good running game, almost a non-existent running game?
Yeah, at times you have to look at it under a microscope, but yeah, there are some positives to glean from the game against the Atlanta Falcons and, most recently the game against the Chiefs. And that's what you really want to see from a young head coach and a young quarterback. Granted, Jalen Hurts was made his 8th NFL start, and I think sometimes that gets lost in the shuffle when you're really evaluating him. It's essentially a rookie quarterback halfway through a season, and you're seeing promising growth from both the quarterback and the head coach. Now, the challenge becomes, can you continue to stack those performances week after week? Because now we've only had, week 1 and week 4, they were decent showings, but what happened to weeks 2 and 3? So it's a volatile situation there, and you want to see, can they continue to build off of what worked and what was so successful on Sunday factor in, you got to be more disciplined because you took points off the board. So if you clean up that area, well, then all of a sudden you have a functioning offense, and now the defense needs to play complementary football. So I think that there are positives to take away from that, and they need to be able to build on that moving forward.
All right, Andrew, against Atlanta, 6 points. Against San Francisco, 17 points. Played well. Against Dallas and the Chiefs, obviously, they gave up, over 40 both times, 83 combined. So you're playing an Atlanta team that's terrible, a San Francisco team that's pretty good, not great, but good, and a Dallas team and a Chiefs team. So the level of competition went up. You did not do very well. When the level of competition was here, your defense played well. Are you somewhere in between? Are you closer to the Atlanta-San Francisco defense, or are you more the team that gave up 83 and 2? How do you kind of see, or how do you evaluate where their defense is based on that 4-game sample size? The two opponents that they gave up 83 on, the other two opponents they only gave up 23 on.
Yeah, the defense is closer to what you saw on Sunday. And I know that might be tough to hear, tough to stomach for Eagles fans, but that's really the reality of the situation. I mean, against the Falcons, the Eagles got up early, but let's not forget Mike Davis was running the ball quite effectively against that defense in the early goings of that game. Once the Eagles got ahead, the Falcons became one-dimensional, so you're sort of able to pin your ears back if you're the Eagles defense and attack Matt Ryan. And then obviously you saw the Dallas really laid out the blueprint for how to attack that Eagles defense, and now you're starting to see teams. I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 100 yards rushing. You saw what Zeke and Tony Pollard did, and now they're gonna attack him with Chuba Hubbard and whoever else is on the schedule down the line here. They're just going to continue to go at them until they figure out a way to stop it, and that's more of the defense that you're really going to see. And like I said, there's no reinforcements out there that you're really going to be able to find that are going to be willing to come to a rebuilding team in a state of flux right now.
Yeah, and I guess, this will be interesting. Like, do you look at a team like Carolina? I know Tampa's tough because obviously they're a little step up. But after that, you've got the Raiders, who are a good team. I don't know that they're a great team. You have teams that are more – the rest of the schedule, other than Tampa and Dallas, my opinion, maybe you differ, are filled with teams who are, at best, good, not great teams. So it's kind of like a lot of measuring sticks games the rest of the way to kind of figure out who you are and what you need to fix. I mean, I think we know some things you need to fix, but you'll get a better indicator with the schedule coming up than you did in the first 4 games. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. But again, this season is all about evaluation, Mike, and I think that sometimes in some cases, the expectations for this season were sort of got out of hand. I mean, 10, 11 wins. I mean, when you really assess the roster and look about how young it is, and in certain areas you're going to endure growing pains. And I think that the main takeaway that you want to see from this season is what can you gauge from Jalen Hurts? Is he a quarterback that you can move forward with? Yep. What pieces do you have on defense? What kind of building blocks are there? Where do you need to find reinforcements? Where do you need to prioritize your assets in the draft? And on offense, can your receivers can they develop throughout the season and take that next step next season? So this season's all about seeing that progress throughout the year, competing with some of these tough teams like the Chargers that are on the schedule, like the Bucs, like you mentioned, that are coming up next week. And you want to see you want to see the growth. You want to see Nick Sirianni sort of become a little bit more refined and comfortable as a play caller. And there's just certain aspects of the game that you want to see. You don't want to see regression. Because that, in my opinion, is considered a failure as a whole. But you want to see encouraging steps forward that you can grow with and build on in the next for the foreseeable future.
All right, I know you got they don't have Gilmore. Obviously, they just traded for him, but he's not ready to play. Horn is out. They did get C.J. Henderson in a trade. Is this a week though where you might be able to take shots down the field?
I think so. I think that the Eagles might surprise a lot of people this week in their execution on offense, and I think you're going to see a more balanced approach. I think there's going to be opportunities to take advantage of that secondary. Obviously, Jeremy Chinn's a player that I like quite a bit. I followed him extensively throughout the whole draft process and his career at Southern Illinois. he's a rangy player. He's all over the back end, and they do have some decent players up front, and Brian Burns and Derek Brown on the defensive line. So that could, cause Jalen to have to escape the pocket and flush him out and make plays on the move. But there will be plays down there. I mean, A.J. Bouye is a beatable corner. Dante Jackson is a very quick twitch, scrappy type of defender. But I think that that there'll be opportunities to get a play or two on him as well. They just have to pick their spots and not make it a deep shot, every single play like they did against Dallas. You have to pick your spots. But they'll be there. There'll be opportunities.
Yeah, this is a Carolina team, obviously, that did not make the playoffs last year. They retooled a lot on defense. They went out and got Sam Darnold. So in your estimation, when you just look at the rosters, is this Carolina roster just a significantly better roster, or do you think this is a winnable road game?
It's a winnable road game, and I think that – listen, when you and I were going over our division previews in the summer before training camp, I mentioned that I thought that the Carolina Panthers in the next year or two were going to be a viable playoff contender. I really like the young pieces that they have there to build on. I thought that loss of J.C. Horn was extremely detrimental to what they like to do on defense. So they have some new pieces that they're trying to implement and get them into the flow of things. But I think now you're catching them at a good time. And I think that there's going to be opportunities there. You got to continue to take the positives away from last Sunday and go back and execute that and take it to the next level this week.
He's Andrew DiCecco. This is Football at 4, Eagles and Panthers, Sunday at 1, right here on 97.3 ESPN. Merrill Reese, Mike Quick, have the call. The Eagles Radio Network coverage begins at noon. And don't forget to check out InsideTheBirds.com and download the Inside the Birds podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, Andrew. Good stuff as always, my man.
Yeah, man. Take care.
Andrew DiCecco here on Football at 4. It's brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long at the Wild Wild West, Tropicana, Harrah's Resort, Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. I'm Mike Hill. This is the Sports Basketball